Alright, so when you guys are working here to start out, I'm going to show the Torreando or the J-point camping independently, and then we'll work to chain between the two. Alright, so making sure that you guys understand some of these concepts. So past the point of doing everything we've talked about previously, let's go just a little bit. I come in, I hand fight, I do everything to get my partner to his back. Okay. When my partner has the ability to engage his 2 feet as wedges between him and I, but his back is on the mat, he's less inclined to come forward and establish upper body grips. This is good for me to some extent. But when I'm here, what I need you guys to understand is I do not want my partner to operate in a fashion where his back is square with the mat. I want to firmly turn him up on towards one side of his body. So what I'm really looking to do is take his hip and his knee towards the mat. The hip is a byproduct of the knee. So when I come here, I'm going to choose one side to thumb post. When I thumb post, I don't want to operate with my hand hovering to the top side of his shin here, because as I get him down, he will still have the ability to do things like pull me into upper body submissions. But in general, his knee shield is effective going in that direction if he has inside position. So at the point where I go to thumb post and I start to engage, shuffling towards the mat here, I begin to flank. I want my right hand at almost the exact same time to circle to an inside position in which my my 4 fingers are facing towards the outside. My thumb is to the top side, and then my forearm is here, where when I flare my elbow, I have some control to flare as well his knee and open the angle of his hip so that his 2 legs aren't initially coming to the same side. So as I come here and I begin to flank towards the side, I need, at the very least, my lead leg to surpass the line of his hips. If I can't accomplish that goal, it becomes very difficult to scoop with this left hand and take him back across. Once my left leg has surpassed the line of the hip, I have a chance, okay? But where I'm really gonna feel strong is when I take my trail leg past the point of the hip. Because now, as I angle my forehead towards my right hand and I put pressure into my right forearm, but I alleviate pressure from my left hand, his hip is gonna start to turn over. And when I have the ability to control the direction in which he faces, and potentially I can make his hips open towards either side, now I have the ability to steer him and dictate which direction I pass towards. And that's really what I want to accomplish. So again, when you guys are here, begin with a thumb post and circle the hand to the hip. This is happening as I'm shuffling, so I'm not crossing my feet, I'm stepping and sliding. I want to at least make it, at the very least, where my left foot exceeds the line of his hip. Ideally, I go one motion past that so that my trail leg is past the point of his hip. And then I begin to shorten the length of my right arm by taking my forehead to my hand, flaring my elbow. I alleviate some pressure from my left hand, scoop it to the bottom side, and then I run until my right knee can occupy the space between his heel and his hamstring, and my left knee is controlling above his tailbone towards his lower back. I should finish with my right hand cupping the bottom side of the hip, my right elbow somewhat high towards the inside of his thigh or hip, and then my left hand is gonna come off, and this is gonna be where I control his active pose. So if he's actively building towards his left arm, elbow particularly, I can come through, I can go to this Dagestani grip, I can break him down, I can go to things like my claw. This is gonna give me the ability to progress towards the back exposure that I create. So one more time here quickly. When you guys work, thumb post and come to the hip, shuffle, 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 change the length of the arm, flare, scoop, and then I run him back. If he elects to build, I try to break him down or control across the body. Make sense for everybody? All right guys, hands up 1, 2. We're gonna talk about again, when my partner inverts, how I can work to alleviate that connection or that wedge, okay? So when you guys are here, let's start with our partner supine. So his back is gonna be on the mat. He's gonna have his feet here as wedges in front of my hips. So I have the ability to work towards either side. That's not gonna be very problematic. But when I'm here, I'm gonna take the false grip here towards the base of the ankle, and I'm gonna work to start flanking towards the side that I wanna go to. But before I can do that, I have to try to alleviate this connection here. So when I'm going, my elbow is gonna adhere towards my hip right here. I'm gonna look to take a step forward with my left foot, and my goal here is to crowd my partner while I break this connection. So I go here like so. There is some potential for his leg to hook the hinge of my knee. So when I'm going, I personally like to momentarily bring my knees together before I take this step across his body. And then I'm looking to shelf the knee. As I'm shelving the knee, you're gonna see that your partner is gonna be square. If he stays square, I go to my leg drag. If he turns and rotates towards the inside hip and begins to frame, this is going to allow me my thumb post, and this is very important. This is what a lot of people are having difficulty finding. And then I have inside control. So I just bring my hand from what would have cupped the knee to posting on the far hip with my 4 fingers facing outwardly. And I very quickly want to change and shorten the length of my right arm. So I begin to thumb post down. This keeps his hip turned down towards the mat. And I begin to walk back. As I walk back, as soon as the height of my head can come here to the inside of the knee, I begin to drive my forehead towards my hand, my right hand. I continue to push with my left hand downward towards the mat, and then I start to engage the balls of my feet coming back. I want to make sure that I create this diagonal angle. So I'm going to slide until my trail leg, which is my right leg in this scenario, exceeds the line of his hip, and then I continue to drive in. As I get to this point right here, I alleviate some of the pressure from the thumb post, and I begin to scoop, taking my palm towards the front side rather than the top side of my partner's quad. My forehead continues to drive. My elbow and forearm begin to flare, and this starts to take my partner back square, and this allows me to begin to run. So if I was gonna come down in this position, this is where I would end up, okay? Instead of getting to this position and having him try to build up and then taking him down, the alternative here, another scenario that we can run into, is if he's very tense when I go to run his hips across, he rotates with me, almost over-rotating to the point where we end up in a north-south angle. He inverts and he brings his knees, shins, or weaves his feet in front of my upper body. He can either frame and stay at that distance if he's posting both hands on the hips, or if he weaves his legs in a crossing fashion like an X, he can start to spin into upper body submissions. So again, you guys are here, breaking down, he turns towards you. As we get to this position, we begin to thumb post and walk back, and we try to spin. We end up in this scenario. If he's keeping my hips at bay, he can bring his knees towards his chest. We end up here like so. For right now, let's just do it with the knees and the shins, but my 2 hands are gonna come and cup the quads. I'm gonna angle my elbows back towards my body, and I'm gonna work to extend, driving my hips forward, pushing his legs away, and then very quickly, while my arms are still extended, my head level comes down, and I begin to make an angle where my head elects one hip to turn towards and drive as a wedge. My arm is gonna bend, almost like a scoop rip here, but my hand is gonna come across, anticipating that he's gonna bridge at some point here. My bicep and my shoulder are gonna come towards that same side hip, and then I begin to angle my pressure by maintaining my tripod, staying on my toes. If he bumps me and I drop, that's where I take this reverse tight waist, and then I can look to come back and scoop and cross face, or I can just look to control the head, and I can begin to walk and change the angle of my body. Most of the time, if I end up here, my partner's gonna try to get perpendicular. He's gonna try to come to side control. So I wanna make sure that I keep the right hand buckled down on this side to prevent his knee shield from coming in. Okay, if I can keep his head off the mat, any subsequent motion that he makes to try to bridge is gonna kind of dissipate in energy. He's not gonna make as strong of a push, okay? Another thing that can happen here, if Austin was on top, I can show this. Can you come to this side? Sure. If I'm framing the hips, I can potentially take myself where I cross one leg around his hip here, and this will allow me to spin through. So if I have a connection, like on the elbow or the tricep, I can actually rotate all the way through. So for right now, I want you guys to just practice your partner bending. The only thing that's gonna clear the front side of the shoulders or the collarbone here is gonna be the knee or the shin. But understand, you have to be aware, if your partner is flexible and they start to take that foot across, there's some propensity to spin towards you and then their hips are gonna elevate as they do that. You have to be prepared to bring elbows back or fight out of that position and posture up once you get back to your knees. Does that make sense for everybody? All right, guys, hands up on 2.